My name is Brian Chapell, and I went to Parkway South Junior High and Parkway West Senior High, graduated in 1972. And currently I serve as the Chancellor of Covenant Theological Seminary here in St. Louis.
What do you remember about Parkway and your experience there?
Well, I remember friends, of course, but particular teachers, I think, come to mind as those who had influence on my life then and particular endearment to me now.
Like who?
Mr. Berger would have been an English teacher that I appreciated a great deal. He didn't always like my writing, but he was great to talk with, and something that I most appreciated Mr. Berger about was that he identified me, put a label on me. And that label was, at some point he said, "Brian, you are a critical optimist," which didn't make sense at the time. But what he said was, you take nothing at face value, but you try to put the best face on everything. And that became not just a label, but an ideal. I thought, now that's what I really hope I am, and I think it became something I tried to become.
I also think it's interesting that you went to a public school and you became involved in religion professionally, and yet you still credit your public school for that.
Well, key
Especially
teachers,
with Polly Kennedy.
Key teachers were helpful. Mr. Berger, of course, was getting his doctorate, I think, at the time that I was a student. And so he liked challenging, I think, philosophical ideals, but I think particularly of Mrs. Kennedy. And she was another English teacher. And Mrs. Kennedy, again, always was correcting my writing. I look back and I think so much of my life has become journalism, writing books, that sort of thing. And I so much am thankful for Mrs. Kennedy, who was settled for nothing but excellence. And yet at the same time, she was one of my chief challengers. She was a woman of faith, and at the same time wanted to make sure that I was not thinking of faith issues simplistically, nor just accepting, as it were, my parents' path. And I actually look back and wonder if in today's day and age, could she have challenged me today the way that she did then? Because at times, she was really quite challenging. Have you really thought this through? Are you really seriously, intellectually grasping with what you say you believe? And I've never faced another public school teacher like Mrs. Kennedy, who at the same time encouraged me while challenging me not to think simplistically of what I believed.
You also teach.
I do teach.
Do you reflect on your teachers when you teach?
My favorite teacher, and he would maybe hate for me to say this, would be Mr. Klein, who was a history teacher, and I had for all 3 years of history at Parkway West. And I look back at Mr. Klein, and again, I'm going to embarrass him, though he would like it deep down, to say he was just hands down the best teacher I ever had, from kindergarten through graduate school. So much because of the way I felt he elicited comments from students as his manner of teaching. And as I look back, just the way I'm wired, that was a very effective teaching method. And as I think about teaching I've done for 3 decades in various parts of the world, I think most of what I have tried to do, I learned from him as a way of engaging students in the teaching process.
What would you say to students who may be sitting in the same seats that you sat in 1972, who want to go into the field that you're in? What would you say to them? Or even who may be trying to discern what they want to do?
Well, I think discernment comes over time, but challenge, even embarrassment, is not a bad way to discern what you may hold most valuable. I discovered over time those teachers who were willing to challenge me, not just allow me to go an easy way, were often the most helpful, although at the time I didn't think so. At times I felt the challenge was unfair, at times I felt the challenge was embarrassing, and in candor, I think some teachers were trying to embarrass as a means of truly making me reflect upon my own values. And you just cannot hold values in this culture or any place without at times recognizing you will face people who differ, you will have to defend your ideas, and sometimes you cannot defend your ideas, hold them because they're in your heart, not because it's something that everybody's going to agree with. And being able to stand your ground and have teachers who will let you learn to do that, challenge, encourage at the same moment, are your really greatest friends down the road.
What words would you use to describe your experience at Parkway?
I remember after college, graduate school, went to journalism school, did grad school in law as well as in theology, did various things like that. I remember at some point filling out a reference and saying to whoever I was applying to at the time, I had great experience in college and grad school, but I think I grew up in high school. And my family was coming apart, and as my family was coming apart, there were teachers in Parkway who in those important maturing and adolescent years were helping me form who I was by giving me opportunity as well as challenge, by giving me instruction as well as encouragement. And in so many ways, what I feel happened in those Parkway years was really the opportunity to grow up in a intellectually challenging but personally supportive environment.
What does tonight mean to you? What does being inducted into the Hall of Fame mean to you?
Well, I recognize just the fun, I hope, of seeing some teachers and friends from the past. That will be good. But what I hope I can do more than anything else is say thank you to those who, in those formative years, contributed more than they knew to my future and to my present. I look back and say, there are wonderful things that I believe the Lord has blessed my life with, but none has been greater than those teachers who poured their lives into mine. And ultimately, the credit is theirs for what they contributed to what I was able to use down the road.
Anything else you want people to know about your experience at Parkway?
I don't want to leave out Mr. Burr. I do want to say that as the Lord has blessed me in life, I've often been in positions of leadership. And I think he was the first to strongly encourage me to say, you can be a leader. And it wasn't a push, but more by example, as he said to me, you can do this. But what I watched was somebody doing it mainly by respecting people. I mean, he was not a strong pusher, but he had the ability to lead by showing people respect. And ultimately, I felt like that was a great model I could look back upon in future years.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.